He spoke his truth at dawn, knowing it could break them both. I was 28, standing on the edge of everything I'd ever wanted to say, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might wake the world. For years, I'd carried this secret, this ache that lived in the quiet spaces of my life. Her name was Elise, my best friend, the one person who knew me better than I knew myself. She was 34, married, untouchable. And yet, every time she laughed, every time her hand brushed mine, I felt it, this pull, this longing that I'd buried deep, because saying it out loud would ruin everything. But that night, something broke inside me. We'd been up for hours, talking, laughing, the kind of night where time slips away and the world feels like it's just you and them. The air was heavy with summer, the kind that clings to your skin, and as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice shook as I said it. Elise, I've been in love with you for years. The words hung there, fragile, like they might shatter the moment they touched the ground. Her eyes, those warm, hazel eyes I'd memorized, widened just enough to tell me she'd heard me. And in that silence, I felt the weight of what I'd done. I'd crossed a line, one that could never be uncrossed. What's worse, confessing a love you know you shouldn't, or living with it in silence, letting it eat you alive? I didn't know the answer then, and I still don't. But as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I saw something in her face, something that made me question everything. Was it shock? Pity? Or something else, something she'd never let herself admit? I'm going to tell you what happened that night, every word, every glance, every moment that led to that confession. And when I'm done, you might hate me, or you might understand. But one thing's for sure, you'll feel it. I've carried this story like a stone in my chest, and now I'm laying it bare for you, every raw, aching piece of it. Because some truths, even the ones that hurt, need to be told. Let me take you back to the start, to the summer that changed everything. My name's Nathan, and I'm not the kind of guy who falls in love easily. I'm the one who overthinks, who keeps things locked up tight, who analyzes every word before it leaves my mouth. But Elise? She was different. I met her 5 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding, one of those backyard affairs with fairy lights and too much champagne. She was standing by the dessert table, her dress catching the light, laughing at something her husband, Mark, had said. She was the kind of person who could make a room feel warmer just by being in it, her laugh, her way of tilting her head when she listened, like she was really seeing you. Mark was a lawyer, nice enough, the kind of man who checked all the boxes, stable, charming, dependable. He had this easy confidence, the kind that made you feel like he had life figured out. But there was something about Elise that felt unfinished, like she was holding back a piece of herself, even from him. I didn't know it then, but that was the first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. We became friends fast, too fast maybe. It started with a conversation at that wedding, something about our shared love for old jazz records. She'd smiled, her eyes bright, and said, "You're not like most people, Nathan." I didn't know what she meant, but I held on to those words like they were a lifeline. Coffee dates turned into late-night talks, the kind where you forget the world exists outside your conversation. She'd tell me about her life, her dreams, the way she felt trapped sometimes, even in a good marriage. She'd talk about how Mark was always busy, always working late, always chasing the next big case. I'd listen, nodding, pretending I wasn't falling for her with every word. I told myself it was just friendship, that I could keep it there, locked in a box where it couldn't hurt anyone. But every time she smiled, every time she leaned close to whisper something silly, that box cracked a little more. I'd catch myself staring at her, memorizing the way her hair fell across her cheek, the way her voice softened when she talked about things that hurt. I'd lie awake at night, replaying our conversations, wondering if she ever thought about me the way I thought about her. That summer, we started spending more time together. Mark was always working late, and Elise, she seemed restless, like she was searching for something she couldn't name. We'd go for walks by the lake near her house, the water reflecting the stars like it was holding on to secrets of its own. We'd talk about everything, books, music, the way life never quite turns out how you expect. I'd tell her about my job, my family, the dreams I'd given up on somewhere along the way. She'd listen, her eyes soft, and I'd feel this warmth, this connection that I'd never felt with anyone else. But there was always this line, this invisible boundary we never crossed. She was married, and I was her friend. That was the deal, the unspoken rule I'd sworn to follow. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Every time I saw her, every time she laughed or brushed my arm, I felt it, this pull, this need that grew stronger with every moment we spent together. The night it all changed started innocently enough. It was August, the air thick with heat and the hum of cicadas, the kind of night that feels alive with possibility. Elise texted me around 9 p.m., asking if I wanted to come over. Mark was out of town, and she didn't want to be alone. I should have said no. I should have known better. But I went, because it was her, and I'd never been good at saying no to her. When I got there, she was sitting on her porch, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes distant, like she was lost in a thought she couldn't shake. "Couldn't sleep," she said, her voice soft, almost fragile. I sat down beside her, the wooden steps creaking under my weight, and we started talking, like we always did. But there was something different that night, something heavier in the air. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, her eyes lingering a little too long, or the way her hand lingered when she passed me a drink. Maybe it was just me, wanting to see something that wasn't there. But as the hours slipped by, I felt it, this pull, this need to say the thing I'd been carrying for years. And as the first light of dawn started to break, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, I knew I couldn't keep it in anymore. The night stretched on, the kind of night where time feels liquid, slipping through your fingers before you can hold onto it. Elise and I had moved inside by then, the porch too chilly as the hours crept toward morning. We were sitting on her couch now, the room dim, lit only by a single lamp in the corner, casting soft shadows across her face. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of summer, and the wine we'd been drinking. We'd been talking for hours, about nothing and everything, old memories, stupid jokes, the kind of things you say when you're trying to keep the silence at bay. But there was this undercurrent, this unspoken thing between us, and I could feel it growing stronger with every passing minute. It was like a current pulling me under, and I didn't know how to fight it anymore. I don't know when I decided to tell her. Maybe it was when she looked at me, her eyes catching the light just right, and said, "You're the only one who really gets me, Nathan." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, and it hit me like a punch to the chest. I wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, to tell her everything. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I just nodded, my throat tight, and said, "I'm glad I'm here." It was a coward's answer, but it was all I could manage. My heart was racing, my palms sweaty, and I could feel the words I'd buried for years clawing their way to the surface. I tried to focus on the sound of her voice, the way she laughed when she told a story about her college days, but it was no use. The truth was there, heavy and undeniable, and I knew I couldn't keep it locked away any longer. The conversation drifted, and we ended up talking about love, not us, not directly, but the idea of it. She told me about her marriage, how it was good but not perfect, how sometimes she felt like she was playing a role instead of living her life. "Mark's great," she said, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "He's everything I thought I wanted. But sometimes, I don't know. I feel like I'm waiting for something else, something I can't name." She looked at me then, her eyes searching mine, and my heart stopped. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Like there's this piece of you that's missing?" I wanted to scream, "Yes, you're the piece I'm missing." I wanted to tell her that every moment I spent with her was a reminder of what I didn't have, what I could never have. But I just looked at her, my heart racing, and said, "All the time." My voice was rough, raw, and I saw something flicker in her eyes, something I couldn't name, but it made my chest ache with hope and fear. The silence that followed was heavy, charged, like the air before a storm. I could feel the words building inside me, pressing against my chest, begging to be let out. I tried to push them down, to focus on the sound of the clock ticking in the background, the faint hum of the world waking up outside. But every time she moved, every time she tucked her hair behind her ear or leaned closer to refill her glass, I felt the walls I'd built crumbling. I was losing control, and I knew it. I told myself to stop, to change the subject, to keep this moment safe. But the truth was too big, too heavy, and I was tired of carrying it alone. It was around 4 a.m. when things shifted. We were sitting closer now, our knees almost touching, the space between us shrinking with every breath. She was telling a story about her childhood, something about sneaking out to watch the sunrise with her sister, and I wasn't really listening anymore. I was watching her, the way her lips moved, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved. I was memorizing her, every detail, like I was afraid I'd lose her if I didn't. And then, out of nowhere, she stopped mid-sentence and looked at me. Really looked at me. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but sharp, like she could see right through me. Her eyes were steady, searching, and I felt exposed, like she could see every secret I'd ever kept. I should have lied. I should have said I was tired, or that I'd had too much wine. I should have laughed it off, made a joke, anything to keep this moment from unraveling. But I didn't. I looked at her, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs, and said, "Elise, there's something I need to tell you." Her eyes widened, just a fraction, and I saw it, the moment she knew something big was coming. She didn't say anything, just nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, and I knew there was no going back. I took a breath, my hands shaking, and the words came out before I could stop them. "I've been in love with you for years. Every day, every moment we're together, it's there, and I can't keep pretending it's not." My voice cracked, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded, but I couldn't stop now. The words were spilling out, raw and unfiltered, like a dam had broken inside me. "I know you're married. I know this is wrong. But I can't keep it inside anymore. I love you, Elise. I always have." I stopped, my chest heaving, my hands trembling in my lap. I wanted to look away, to hide from the weight of what I'd just done, but I couldn't. I needed to see her, to know what she was feeling, even if it broke me. The room went still, like the world had stopped breathing. Her face didn't move, but her eyes, they were everything. Shock, fear, something softer I couldn't name. She didn't speak, not at first, and the silence was worse than anything I could have imagined. It was like a physical thing, pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to take it back, to rewind the moment, and keep my secret safe. But it was out now, hanging between us like a fragile thread, and I didn't know if it would hold or snap. Every second that passed felt like a lifetime, and I could feel my heart sinking, my hope crumbling under the weight of her silence. Finally she spoke, her voice so quiet I almost missed it. "Nathan, why now?" There was no anger in her tone, just a kind of sadness that cut deeper than any rejection could have. Her eyes were locked on mine, and I saw the conflict there, the way she was grappling with what I just said. I didn't have an answer, not a good one. "Because I couldn't keep lying to myself," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because every time I'm with you, it hurts more to stay quiet." It was the truth, raw and ugly, and I hated how desperate it made me sound. But it was all I had. She looked away, her hands twisting in her lap, and I saw the weight of it settle over her, the weight of my confession, the weight of her marriage, the weight of everything we'd built over the years. "I don't know what to say," she said finally, her voice trembling. "You're my best friend. You mean so much to me. But I'm married. You know that." Her words were like a knife, sharp and precise, cutting through the fragile hope I'd been clinging to. But there was something else in her voice, something that made my heart ache even more, a softness, a hesitation, like she was fighting her own feelings. I nodded, my throat burning. "I know. I'm not asking you to leave him. I needed you to know." But even as I said it, I felt the lie in it. I wanted her to feel the same, to say something that would make this less impossible. I wanted her to look at me and say she'd felt it too, all these years, that I wasn't alone in this. But she didn't. She just looked at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't read, regret, maybe, or pity, or something deeper, something she wasn't ready to face. And in that moment I felt the full weight of what I'd done. I'd laid my heart bare, and now I had to live with the consequences. The silence stretched on, heavy and unbearable. I wanted to fill it, to say something that would make this moment less raw, less real. But I couldn't. I just sat there, watching her, waiting for something, anything, that would tell me what she was thinking. The first light of dawn was starting to creep through the window now, painting the room in soft, golden hues. It should have been beautiful, but it felt like a betrayal, like the world was moving on without us. The light caught her face, highlighting the curve of her cheek, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her skin, and I felt that familiar ache, the one that had lived in me for years. I wanted to memorize this moment, to hold on to it, even if it hurt. Elise stood up, her movements slow, deliberate, like she was trying to hold herself together. She walked to the window, her back to me, and I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "This changes things, Nathan," she said, her voice so soft I had to strain to hear it. "You know that, right?" Her words were like a punch to the gut, and I felt the air leave my lungs. I wanted to tell her it didn't have to change anything, that we could go back to how things were, but I knew that was a lie. I'd changed everything, and there was no undoing it. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I know." My voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to someone else. I wanted to tell her I was sorry, that I'd take it back if I could, but that would have been another lie. I wasn't sorry. Not really. I was terrified, but I wasn't sorry. I needed to say it, needed her to know, even if it cost me everything. I'd been carrying this love for so long, and it had grown too heavy to bear alone. She turned to face me, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought she might say something that would change everything. I thought she might tell me she felt it too, that she'd been fighting the same feelings, that we could find a way to make this work. But instead, she just shook her head, a small, almost imperceptible movement. "I need time," she said. "I need to think." And then, softer, "I didn't expect this." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried so much confusion, sadness, maybe even a hint of something else, something I couldn't let myself hope for. I wanted to ask what she meant, what she hadn't expected, my feelings, or her own reaction to them. I wanted to push her, to make her say more, to give me something to hold on to. But I didn't. I just sat there, my hands clasped tightly together, trying to keep myself from falling apart. "Take all the time you need," I said, even though every part of me wanted to beg her to stay, to talk, to tell me what she was feeling. My voice was steady, but inside, I was unraveling, piece by piece. She nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line, and then she walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the weight of what I'd done. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty space where she'd been, replaying every word, every glance, every moment that had led to this. Had I ruined everything? Had I misread her all these years? Or was there something there, something she wasn't ready to admit? My mind was a tangle of questions, each one sharper than the last, and I didn't have any answers. All I had was the memory of her eyes, the way they'd looked when I'd said those words, and the silence that had followed. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. I left her house just as the sun was fully up, the world bright and cruel in its indifference. The streets were quiet, the early morning light casting long shadows across the pavement. I walked home, my hands stuffed in my pockets, my mind replaying every moment of that night. I didn't hear from her for days, and every moment of silence felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything that would tell me where we stood. But there was nothing. Just the memory of her face, the way her eyes had looked when I'd said those words, and the unbearable quiet that had followed. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that I'd done the right thing, that honesty was worth it, even if it hurt. But the doubt was always there, gnawing at me, whispering that I'd lost her forever. When I finally saw her again, it was at a coffee shop, a neutral place, like we were both trying to pretend things could go back to normal. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed, her smile forced. I sat down across from her, my heart pounding, and we talked about small things at first, work, the weather, anything to avoid the elephant in the room. But I could feel it, the tension between us, the way every word carried a weight it hadn't before. Every time our eyes met I felt it, that pull, that ache, that love I couldn't shake. I wondered if she felt it too, or if I was just imagining it, seeing what I wanted to see. Finally, she set her coffee down and looked at me, her expression unreadable. "I've been thinking about what you said," she started, her voice steady but quiet. "And I don't know what to do with it, Nathan. You're my best friend. You've always been there for me, through everything. But this, it's complicated." Her words were careful, measured, like she was choosing each one with precision. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the way she was trying to balance her feelings with the reality of her life. I nodded, my heart sinking. "I know it's complicated." I shouldn't have said anything. The words felt like ash in my mouth, but I said them anyway, because I thought it was what she needed to hear. "No," she said quickly, her voice sharp. "Don't say that. I'm glad you told me. I don't know what it means for us." She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup, her eyes fixed on the table. "I care about you. More than I probably should. But I'm married. I made a promise." Her voice cracked on the last word, and I saw the pain in her eyes, the way she was fighting to hold herself together. Her words hit me like a wave, pulling me under. She cared about me. More than she should. It wasn't a confession, not exactly, but it was enough to make my heart ache with possibility and pain. I wanted to ask her what she meant, to push her to say more, to tell me if she felt even a fraction of what I felt. But I could see the conflict in her eyes, the way she was struggling to reconcile her feelings with her vows, with the life she'd built. I wanted to reach across the table, to take her hand, to tell her we could figure it out together. But I didn't. Because she was right, it was complicated, and I'd made it that way. "I don't want to lose you," I said, my voice breaking. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this way." It was the truth, raw and unfiltered, and I saw the way it landed, the way her eyes softened, just for a moment. She looked at me then, her eyes pleading, almost desperate. "I don't want to lose you either," she said. "But I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be your friend and know this." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and I could hear the pain in it, the fear, the confusion. It was like looking in a mirror, seeing my own turmoil reflected back at me. We sat in silence after that, the weight of her words settling over us like a fog. The coffee shop buzzed around us, people coming and going, their lives untouched by the storm we were caught in. I wanted to say something, anything, to make this moment less heavy, but there were no words that could fix this. I'd said what I needed to say, and now we were both left with the consequences. I looked at her, at the way her hands trembled slightly, at the way her eyes darted away from mine, and I felt the ache of loving her, of knowing I might never have her. Weeks passed, and things between us were never the same. We still talked, still saw each other, but there was a distance now, a carefulness that hadn't been there before. Every smile, every glance, felt like it carried a question neither of us was brave enough to answer. We'd meet for coffee, or take walks by the lake, but it was different now. The ease we'd once had, the way we could talk for hours without thinking, was gone. In its place was a quiet tension, a constant awareness of the line we'd crossed, even if we hadn't touched it physically. I kept waiting for her to say something, to give me a sign that she felt the same, that she was wrestling with the same impossible feelings. But she never did. She'd smile, she'd laugh, she'd talk about her day, But there was always this wall between us now, one I'd built with my confession. I tried to move on, to focus on work, on friends, on anything that wasn't her. But every time I saw her, every time I heard her voice, I was right back in that moment, standing at dawn, my heart laid bare. I'd lie awake at night, replaying our conversations, searching for clues, for anything that might tell me she felt something too. I'd think about the way she looked at me that night, the way her voice had softened when she said she cared about me. I'd hold on to those moments, even though they hurt, because they were all I had. I think about that dawn a lot, the way the light broke over the horizon as I broke my own heart. I don't know if I regret it. Some days I think I should have kept it buried, let it stay a secret that only hurt me. I tell myself that I could have lived with the pain, that I could have kept loving her quietly, from a distance, without ever risking what we had. Other days I'm glad I said it, even if it changed everything. Because for one moment, it was real. For one moment she knew. And even if she never says it back, even if she never feels the same, that moment was mine. It was honest, raw, and true, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I still see her sometimes, and every time I feel it, that ache, that pull, that love I can't shake. She's still married, still Elise, still the person who knows me better than anyone. And I'm still here, loving her from a distance, wondering what might have been if I'd never spoken. I don't know if we'll ever find our way back to what we were, or if we'll drift further apart, two people caught in the gravity of a truth too big to hold. But I know I'll carry this with me always, this love that's both a gift and a wound, a secret I couldn't keep and a truth I'll never escape. Have you ever confessed a forbidden love? Did it set you free, or did it break something you can't fix? Share your story in the comments. I read every one. And if this moved you, share it with someone who'd understand. Because sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones we need to hear. Comment below, should I have spoken, or kept it buried forever? I'm still asking myself that question, and maybe you have the answer I've been searching for.